We interrupt our normal program. Normal broadcasting will now be discontinued for an indefinite period.
This station will continue to stay on the air throughout the alert period to bring you authentic information. Telephone service to your home may be cut off. If you can plug in your radio in the basement, take it with you. Use a portable radio set if you have one.
On a recent trip from Nevada to California, I brought along this TID radio TD-H3, and I've only flown with a ham radio one other time. And a question I sometimes hear people ask is, can I bring my radio on an airplane? The answer is yes, the TSA doesn't prohibit radios. However, if the radio you're transporting has a lithium battery, you should pack it with your carry-on items. While the FAA doesn't have strict rules on the radios themselves, they do have specific guidelines about the types of batteries passengers can transport. For example, when it comes to lithium batteries, the FAA requires passengers to bring those in their carry-on luggage. The reason they want you to bring those in your carry-ons as opposed to checked luggage is because of thermal runaway, which can affect lithium batteries that are damaged, are overheating, overcharged, or have been exposed to water. Thermal runaway occurs when a battery's temperature increases rapidly and uncontrollably. And as the battery fails, it vents toxic gases and it can catch fire or potentially explode. Thermal runaway can also occur due to manufacturing defects with a given battery, and flight crews are trained to respond to lithium battery fires in the cabin. On the same day I was traveling back, I happened to see a news report about a Southwest flight that had to make an emergency landing due to a fire in the cabin caused by a laptop battery.
And now bringing you back to breaking news, we are hearing from passengers after a fire broke out on a Southwest plane at the Reno Tahoe International Airport. Well, airport officials tell us a laptop battery caught fire after the plane landed and passengers were getting off. The plane was coming from Las Vegas and landed around 10 o'clock this evening at Reno. Well, News 4 spoke to one passenger who recalls the moments that he found out there was a fire.
People were getting off. I was getting my stuff ready, and then someone said, there's a fire. There's a fire in the back of the plane. And once they said it, I could smell. It wasn't super strong, but I could smell. And then as I was leaving, it got a little smoky.
The Reno Fire Department and Renza responded to the scene. Airport officials tell us that no one had been taken to the hospital, and we're still working to gather more information, and we'll keep you updated as that comes in.
In addition to any extra batteries for my devices, I typically travel with at least one small power bank like this one, which is rated at 37 watt hours. And the FCC requires that any spare lithium ion and lithium metal batteries, including power banks and cell phone battery charging cases, are also stored in carry-on baggage. So if you have spare batteries like the ones I just mentioned that aren't attached to a device, then they need to go with you and they cannot be in your checked bags. There are also limitations on how large of a lithium battery you can carry on. So from what I've researched, batteries are limited to a rating of 100 watt hours per battery. And according to the FAA literature I read, you can also get prior approval from the airline to carry on up to 2 spare lithium ion batteries in the range of 101 to 160 watt hours. Not all lithium batteries have the watt hours marked. I believe some of the newer ones may, but to calculate the watt hours, you multiply the battery voltage by the amp hours. So in the example the FAA gives in their literature, a 12-volt battery rated to 8 amp hours is rated at 96 watt hours. So it's 12 times 8 equals 96. And then for milliamp hours, you'll multiply the milliamps by the volts divided by 1,000 to calculate the watt hours. And an example would be a 300 milliamps times 5 volts divided by 1,000 equals 1.5 watt hours. One of the reasons I chose to take this H3 is it's pretty easy to program on the fly with the Oddmaster app on my phone. So if I find a repeater that I want to monitor while traveling, then it's pretty convenient to input that information into the app and then save it to the radio. I also like that it has a small form factor, and I like to travel light when it comes to my carry-on luggage. Also, the H3 can receive airbands, and when traveling, I think it's fun to listen to some of the airport traffic, which is what you were listening to at the beginning of this video. Here's a little bit more footage of some of the traffic I was able to capture.
November 479 for Papa Papa on Tower 182 Southwest 2547, just all the way up for both, please. Traffic will land with my runway behind you. Evident, up to the whole truck body, Southwest 2547. West 3275, runway 20 right, clear to land. Land 20 right, closer 275. Clear to 6 Juliet Charlie at Lima, correct, runway 20 left, push clear to runway 20 right. 777 West Bravo, downwind tower rapid. Downwind tower side, 249 at Southwest, inbound island 20 right. 249 Southwest, downwind tower, runway 20 right, continue traffic, go ahead position. 20 right, 249 at Southwest,
If you have a radio that can receive airbands, one of the ways to find frequencies to monitor is through the FAA chart supplement. And this is something that you can find online, and I'll leave a link in the description below. But the digital chart supplements are published in the form of PDFs, and they're a series of civil and military flight information publications that the FAA issues on a regular basis. The chart supplements cover the United States, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Pacific territories, and some of the information you'll find includes data on public and joint use airports, heliports, weather data, airspace, special notices, operational procedures, and communications information. Here's an example of information I pulled from the chart supplement for the southwestern United States. Specifically, I wanted to see the information for the airport I was departing from, which was Reno Tahoe International Airport. And then later I pulled the chart supplement for John Wayne Airport in Orange County, California. As I scroll down, you'll notice that the airport information has a section for communications, and Reno Tahoe lists a Unicom frequency of 122.950 megahertz, and that's this frequency I've highlighted. For John Wayne, the airport that I was arriving to, the communication section lists a CTAF of 126.8 megahertz and a Unicom frequency of 122.950 megahertz. And I'll scroll down and show you that. So there's the Unicom frequency and then a CTAF frequency for that airport. You might also notice there's a frequency under the label D-ATIS, and that's one that I've highlighted here. And my understanding of the frequencies listed under D-ATIS are a text-based digitally transmitted version of the traditional ATIS audio broadcast. And basically, it's a system that delivers automatic terminal information such as weather, runways in use, and approach information to aircraft via data link, instead of the traditional voice broadcast. And since this is a text-based system, that won't help us much for the monitoring. What we're interested in are the CTAF and Unicom frequencies. CTAF stands for Common Traffic Advisory Frequency, and this is a frequency that is designated for the purpose of carrying out airport advisory practices when operating to or from airports that either don't have an operating control tower or for times where the control tower is closed. And pilots can use the CTAF to advise other aircraft of their position and altitude, as well as announce their intentions. The Unicom frequency, which is an acronym for Universal Communications, are stations that provide things like airport information at public use airports where there's no tower. They can also provide pilots with weather information, wind direction, recommended runways, as well as fuel requests or other services such as aircraft parking and maintenance. Anyway, that's all for now. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching.